Hello, everyone. Today I'm joined by Adeola Adejobi, Esquire, the founder of Avant-Garde Network, the host of the Diversity in Commercial Real Estate Conference, and Women of Color and Capital. How are you doing today, Adeola?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Awesome, I'm fine. Thanks for asking. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to start the Diversity in Commercial Real Estate Conference that's coming up.
Yeah, I mean, my background, I'm an attorney by trade, always had a very strong interest, in real estate. Obviously, it can sometimes be one of those industries that's like pretty like convoluted, especially if you want to like be in commercial, like build buildings and, stuff like that. So in terms of the conference, I feel like what really inspired me was it took me some time to break into the industry. And with that, even outside of getting a role, I networked a lot and I met a lot of people and spent years building my network, in the industry. And so what I wanted to do was really build the conference I wish I would have been able to have when I was first trying to break in, right? So I think that's what really makes this conference unique. I mean, people come for the speakers and that aspect of it is really important. But I think what's also kind of like even more important is having an opportunity to be around like-minded folks who, have all really had their own struggles in the industry, but want to make it easier for the next person. So people who are looking to pay it forward. And I think the great thing about this industry that I love is, when it's relationship based, that means that to a certain extent, you want to build as many relationships as possible. You never know where anybody's going to be. You never know what type of opportunity someone can bring your way. So I highly encourage folks to really, connect with people, build your network, and use that also as a way to figure out what you want to do. I think there's so many aspects of commercial real estate that are not highlighted, that people don't know about. And that's what we use this conference for, not just to inform the new folks, but also highlight the people of color, especially a lot of Black folks who you wouldn't even think work in some of these industries.
And when was the first conference and how has it evolved since that first event?
Yeah, the first conference actually was in 2019. But when I look back at it, I hosted our first event or just around commercial real estate period in 2016. And what I will say is like that first conference only had, it wasn't even a conference. It was just like an event. I already had Avant-Garde Network and I was interested in commercial. And I felt like, hey, like I literally just met someone recently who's closed millions of dollars in transactions and you host that event. And I think we only had like 6 people there. So I think it's definitely a testament to just keep going.
Yeah. So what are some challenges that come with organizing an event of this size? Because now you have like hundreds of people showing up. And so how's that been?
I think the interesting thing post-COVID really is ultimately like the cost. Like the cost of everything, has gone up. And then we hosted in New York, which is, an expensive city, to host it in. I think when you're hosting a bigger conference, obviously you want to make sure that you're covering things that are like cutting edge and things are not getting stale. But I would say that we are, it's funny, we're pretty much covering the same topics we covered in 2019, but the market is different. So now people are saying something completely different than what they were saying, a few years ago. Right. So I think, and I wouldn't even consider it a challenge. I think in every industry you want to keep up with what's happening. Mm-hmm. And so I would say outside of like just the size of it all, I think we're good to go. I mean, if I had to think of another challenge, it would be like, considering how we would potentially expand in other markets. We have had a lot of people reach out to us and say, hey, like we wish we had something like this in our city. And so, that's something that we're thinking through.
All right. And what are some of the memorable events or outcomes from past events that you remember?
Yeah, in terms of memorable, look, that year one, when we actually hosted the conference, we literally hosted the largest conference in the nation, right? So, and we're talking about 2019. We're not talking about like 1990, right? We're talking about like a few years ago where you could have over 600, Black folks, Black and brown folks together talking about the industry and what they're doing, right? So I think that part, stood out to me. Also, for me, being blessed to have a network of people that, if I call them and ask them to speak, they will, because it's people that are extremely busy. But, people got, investments in their deals, they got jobs, they got business partners, they built their network. And that's what this conference really is about. It's about doing business.
Yeah.
Yes, we come and we listen and we learn, but we're very big on, like, you need to know the person sitting next to you, shake hands, get cards, like all of that stuff is extremely important for a conference like this, because it's just how our industry works.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the industry, what are your thoughts on the importance of diversity in the commercial real estate industry?
I mean, extremely important. I mean, obviously, it's interesting because I feel like we're having kind of like a second wave of urban planning and urban design, where obviously, like during COVID, like people were moving out, but ultimately people are moving back in, just as quickly. And, an aspect that I think is heavily emphasized now is affordable housing. What is affordable? What is affordable housing? What is affordable? Affordable for who? Yeah. Like there's a lot of different aspects to that weren't necessarily there before. And we're talking about a country where a lot of people that were middle class are now falling into working class. And like, it just like keeps going down. With the way rent is going up, you can easily anticipate significant increases in homelessness and the working poor, right? And that's not necessarily something that we were dealing with, like, in the 90s, right? And we have a housing shortage in certain areas. People from big cities like New York and San Francisco are moving to other places. They can afford to spend more. So that ultimately, pushes people out. Who's elected? What are they focused on in terms of affordable housing? I think there's a very strong connection to politics and real estate that a lot of people don't pay attention to. When people say they want affordable housing, I'm like, well, if you want affordable, are you voting? Because if you're not voting, you're not going to get affordable housing. There's certain allocations of funding that your senators, your congresspersons, your mayors can get, in order to help build affordable housing. Yeah. And if you're not, I'm not going to make this a rally for anyone in particular, but what I would say is we have to keep our eye on the ball, and we have to understand, people say like, oh, their area is being gentrified. I'm like, this area, the gentrification process doesn't start when you see it. It starts 10 years ago. And there are people that are in these industries that pay attention to the markets. They know where the industry is going, and they're planting their seeds to pluck that fruit, and reap those profits 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line. So we have to stay plugged in to what type of economic development activity is happening in our cities in order to be able to take advantage of certain things. And I think a big part of that is just even participating in the industry. The reality is, and this is for anyone, like most people can't tell you more than what you know about what you do, because you do it every day, right? And you're gaining skills every day, and you'll see what's happening every day. If we don't have enough of us in real estate, we don't see what's happening every day. Right? Like we can't get together and say, hey, like we noticed that we think this policy is going to have unintended consequences, even though the intent is in the right place, right? You have to have people that are experts. And when we think about real estate, we're talking about an industry where Black people were deliberately kept out, right? Whether it was redlining, whether it was just not giving someone a job, whether it was not selling a property or an asset to someone. Even now, issues with appraisal, right? So it's kind of like an ongoing thing that we have to continue to move the needle on, and it's not gonna change in a day or two. We are thinking about, yes, how we can improve our lives today for us, but then also how can we improve our lives for our children so they can have better opportunities, so they can have generational wealth.
Well said. And I'm sure that's one of the conversations, or many conversations, that's going to be taking place this weekend at the conference. What else should attendees expect?
I would say attendees can expect lots of networking. We're all about networking. So the event is 4 days, 7 events, a ton of networking. We have so many esteemed speakers. Like I'm talking about pioneers in different industries, an opportunity to learn about maybe some things that you're not familiar with. We're covering industrial, hotels, multifamily, affordable housing development. And these are the people who do this work daily. These are the experts, right? Like these are the people who, it's hard to just, let me put it this way. These are not necessarily, some are, but the most of the people speaking are not the people you're going to hear on the radio talk about the subject matter, right? Like these are the people who are experts. They're in deals or closing deals. And, there's a level of complexity when you talk about commercial real estate that is not necessarily like palatable to the masses, if you will, right? That's like if someone who's like a civil engineer come and talking to me about something, I'm like, what? This sounds very interesting, but it's not making a lot of sense, And so for those that are going to be attending, this conference, we have a mixed bag of folks. We have people that are in the industry, people that are in development, people who are trying to break in, people who are emerging developers, professionals. I would say that in terms of the age group of our demographic, it's really 38 and up. Commercial real estate, like you said before, with, for all the aforementioned reasons, commercial real estate is kind of, I would say for Black people, most of the time is a second career. You probably got, a law degree, you probably have a CPA, like some other profession that you were working in before you had the opportunity to be able to transition, into the industry. Because, while the industry can be lucrative, it's also an old boys club, if you will, right? And also it's controlled by families. A lot of small families control a lot of real estate, right? And so as we're trying to make our way, through it, my goal is that this conference inspires folks. It helps people get job opportunities, and even into real estate programs. I mean, I think that's something that people don't talk about enough. And again, like there's the residential, and people can build wealth with residential, like you can. But when we're talking about commercial, it's very likely that someone's going to need an advanced degree, some sort of advanced degree. That's just, if you look at most folks across the industry, the vast majority of folks do. So with that said, I think that's something that people need to consider and think about. And we're really excited that the Paul Milstein Center for Real Estate at Columbia is also a partner with us on this event, because they're looking for more diverse folks to participate. And we have a number of other business schools that have real estate programs that are participating and having their grad students kind of jump in so they can get a head start on being able to build their network. But I would say about 95% of the audience are working professionals or entrepreneurs.
Okay, got it. And for those who are interested and want to find out more about the conference, where can they go?
They can go to diversitycrec.com.
Okay. And switching gears slightly, but still related, you have another event coming up called the Women of Color and Capital Conference. Tell us a little bit about that also.
Yeah, Women of Color and Capital, we launched that in 2018. And the goal there is just to help women along their financial journey, no matter where they are. So what I noticed at the time was a lot of brands were focused on the fact that, women have more money, Black women have more capital that they can spend on consuming. We actually had an event that year called Black Women and Consumerism. And it wasn't really about just the spending habits. It was more so about how we were being targeted. It's like, okay, well, Black women have more money, so let's get them to buy more stuff. As opposed to, well, Black women have more money, how can we help them create wealth? And I mean, there's probably reasons why people weren't focusing on it with us in that way. But guess what? People reach out to men and focus on helping men build wealth, right? Because a financial advisor or financial institution makes money. And so it's a win-win from doing that. And I'm like, okay, well, if women have more money, Black women have more money, why aren't we focusing on that? And again, I really wanted to focus on different areas on your financial journey, or wherever, meeting people where they were. So with that, we have 4 pillars. The pillars are financial wellness, health, working with advisors, business capital, an area where Black women are struggle the most, right? Which I think is related to the first one, which is not just about saving your money, it's also about how much you're getting paid. Yeah. So we would have sessions on things like how to negotiate your salary, when you should leave your job, right? Because most Black women do not get promoted in their actual role. They get promoted when they go somewhere else, right? So we have to have a conversation about not being afraid to leave where you're working for a better opportunity. Then we have like the business capital, whether it's working with a bank for a business line of credit, a small business loan, whether it's venture capital, angel, getting an angel investor, maybe syndicating some capital. And again, like the reality is most company, and I feel like venture gets a lot of play, but most companies don't need venture. Most companies are not structured for venture. They're just not. And that's okay. You can still run a multi-million-dollar business and not get venture, right? It's a different structure. It's a different level of pressure. And you also have to think about ownership, because guess what? People will take your business from you. So if you want to have a family legacy business, venture might not be for you. That's not something I'm not saying it's not, but it might not, be for you. So there's that. And then also thinking about how you can have your company have enough capital so that when you do bring investors in, you're getting your fair share for what your company is worth, right? We don't want it to where Black women are giving up 50% of their business for $25,000. That like business is shut down. That you can't go anywhere. You can't do anything with that. But again, we launched this at a time where people weren't really focusing, on Black women. And so we also have the other track of women as investors, investing in the stock market, investing with an advisor, investing in real estate, considering investing as a LP in a syndicate. We think that's also important because women have capital sitting there. And we want to help them try to learn more information so they become comfortable with making investments, right? And I'm not saying investing in your savings. I'm talking about after you have some extra, trying to figure out what you want to do there in order to build wealth for yourself, your family, et cetera. And then from there, women as venture capitalists. And in order for us to get more women in the fund space, whether it's venture or private equity, we have to have more women who have an investing track record. If you don't have an investing track record, you can't manage a fund. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to go raise 50 million, 25 million, however many million, if you haven't invested 5,000, if you haven't invested 25,000. So what makes our conference unique is we're pulling together a lot of different people along the financial spectrum. And our goal is that you're not stagnant. Right? And again, you have the right to be whatever, you can choose whatever track you want to be on. So that's fine. You might say, hey, I want to continue to learn on the financial wellness aspect. And then that might get you to the point where you say, I actually have some extra capital. I want to launch a business, or I want to launch a business as a way to make extra capital. That's also another way to financial freedom. Or you might say, now that I have some extra capital, I want to invest in some business owners, right? I see it all the time. We have business owners around us who have great talent and skills, but don't have the money necessary. And there's a stat out there, I can't remember where it's from, but it basically says like 67% of businesses fail, not because they're not good ideas, but because they don't have enough money. And so when we think about that as an overall statistic about businesses, and then we drill down to Black and brown folks, Black women, right? We know that is even more stark. So for me, I'm really passionate about like economic opportunities. That's what my company Avant-Garde Network is about. And we really focus on business and industry and trying to connect people to information, connect them to, the business leaders, the respected business leaders in the industry, and just connecting them to opportunities and the network.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's definitely been a blessing. I mean, we have so many amazing partners like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, PGIM, Capital One, Oladipo Wealth Management. Like we have a lot of companies that have come on board to support our work and what we do. And that allows us to continue to bring these opportunities to folks.
That's great. And where can people find out more about this particular conference?
So Women of Color in Capital is womenofcolorincapital.com.
Okay. All right. Well, Adeola, thank you so much for stopping by and sharing all this information about the great stuff that you're working on. Looking forward to attending the conference this weekend. And it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.